Good afternoon. I'm Alex Johnston, candidate for Corpus Christi City Council at large. And I want to address a video that's been circulating from Chris 6 News about why does an industry just build their own desal plant? And the idea that them doing so would ultimately result in us as ratepayers and citizens paying more for our water. I spent half a decade in the regulated utilities industry, oil, gas, electricity, water, a lot of them follow this same model for how ratepayers fund both their usage of water as well as the infrastructure for delivery of those resources to individuals and industries. And so I think that the narrative of that video is a little bit misleading, and I want to clarify something so we can be pushing our city leadership for the right information to be allowed to make informed decisions rather than just following a narrative. So, as you're very well aware, every month you get a water bill from the city. But that water bill isn't just paying for the water that you're using out of your tap. Factored into that cost are the costs of the piping infrastructure, water towers, treatment plants, as well as the debt service for all of the money that's been borrowed to build that infrastructure. And in theory, that rate base is calculated in such that we are paying enough that we can replace the assets when they reach the end of their life and continue to have an operating grid without paying for everything all at once or everything all up front, and servicing the debt in time with as things break down and need to be repaired. And so collectively, that all comes together to form a pie of sorts, if you will, that generates your water bill. And historically, here in Corpus, that water bill has been shared, that pie has been shared out between the residents of the city, the ratepayers of the city, as well as the industry in our community that is also a major user of the water. And one thing I would note in that video from Chris 6, they're very careful in how they parse their words. They say industry uses half of the water. What they don't say is industry pays for half the water, because they do pay a lower rate per gallon than your typical residential user will pay. So here, under our current system, we're producing so many millions of gallons of water. They're being consumed by residents and industry. And then we are paying for both the water we're using as well as the infrastructure to support that and the debt that was used to finance it. So what happens if industry goes out and builds their own desal plant, right? And now all of a sudden the thought is they're leaving the rate base, right? So now residents are left holding the bag for the entire cost of all of the piping infrastructure, all of the treatment plants, all of the debt service, in addition to whatever water they're using every day. And the thought under the video is, well, then we would end up paying more. And yeah, under that scenario, sure, we would. But we've got to compare apples to apples, right? The scenario they're comparing to is not just industry leaving to build their own desal, it's the city helping to fund or fully funding these desal solutions to provide both residents and industry. So you're not comparing a system where industry just leaves to us doing our own thing. You're comparing industry just leaves to the city building additional, very expensive assets that we then have to maintain and service the debt on versus industry leaving. So we're growing the whole pie. And industry may take a bigger chunk of that pie. They may even foot more of the bill for that pie, but unless we know those exact numbers, we don't really have an accurate basis of comparison. And so we need to push leadership for that level of granular detail so we can see, okay, maybe the pie is growing. Do the citizens of this city have to foot more of that bill? From everything I've read, that looks like it's going to be the case, particularly with the Inner Harbor project. So really, all this to say we need to continue to push for transparency. We need to push for real data-driven decisions, not just narratives, and continue to hold our leadership accountable and ask for the information we need as citizens to make an informed decision. I'm Alex Johnston, candidate for City Council at Large, Corpus Christi. To learn more, you can follow us on Facebook at Alex for Corpus. Thank you very much and have a great day.